Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a very short webinar this morning on Alpha People's solution usage monitoring, and really to help understand if you are getting enough from your CRM solution. So my name's Anna, and I'm just going to start with going over a few little pieces of housekeeping. Thank you so much for joining us today, wherever you are in the world. We have a lot of people from Denmark, also the United Kingdom, and other places in Europe. The first thing is the call will be recorded, so we will be able to send this to you on demand too. And all attendees are muted, but please, we do encourage you to ask any questions you have in the question toolbox to the top right of your screen, and we will answer these at the end of the presentation today. And like I said earlier, it will be recorded and also shared, and we do encourage you to ask as many questions as you have to our presenters. So on the team from Alpha People, we have my counterpart in Denmark, Gitte, and she is the marketing manager for Denmark and has been at Alpha People for about over 4 years now. Also myself, who is based in the United Kingdom. And today the host for the call is Jan, and he is an absolute expert in this area. So you are in the best hands possible. Not only is he involved in the pre-sale side, but also the demonstrations and the nitty-gritty to the solution, which you'll be seeing a little bit of today. So I would like to hand over without any further ado to our host, Jan.
Thank you very much, Anna, and welcome to you all. We have a short agenda here. We're going to be very brief on who we are, and then we'll get into the users monitoring solution with some benefits, solution overview, a little bit about the setup, and then we'll spend some time on the reporting piece, and that will include a demo. Then we have a client case that we'll showcase here, and then if we have time, there will be a Q&A at the end. If we don't get to it, we'll respond back to you on email after the webinar today. But let's get started here. Alpha People is a global company. We're in about 14 countries. We have more than 700 clients that we serve in 23 countries. We're about 550 people, and that doesn't include our offshore team. We have an offshore team in India with about 25 people that can support us and you as a customer. We have been a long time member of the Microsoft Inner Circle, 10 consecutive years. So this just means that we're committed to Microsoft and we're committed to Dynamics. A few logos, and some of these logos are actually running this users monitoring service. So we will have a few on that I'll be mentioning today here. One of the cases that I'll be mentioning is Viking Life Savings Equipment. Those are the company that are creating life-saving boats and equipment for the marine industry. When we look at users monitoring tool, some of the benefits that you can gain from implementing this tool is obviously, let's start in the middle here, user adoption. And why is user adoption important? Like, you make a significant investment in Dynamics 365, and you want to make sure that it's used by the users. So being able to see who uses it, or maybe even more important, who doesn't use the system as it's supposed to. And what is used actually are users using the right areas of the application, and also it gives you the option here to analyze patterns of usage. And then obviously over time, access your user adoption, and then improve on initiatives like training, maybe change management, if you see that the user adoption is below what you expected it to be. On the right-hand side, GDPR compliance, that is in today's world becoming more and more important. So the tool can also give you access to data, not personal data, but user data to see who are using maybe entities that they shouldn't use, and then correct the user security roles afterwards. So being able to monitor maybe entities that are considered GDPR, that could be important as well. And finally, having the right mix of licenses, like the license review. We all know that licenses can be expensive, and having the right mix of license can actually make have some savings to your license cost, your Microsoft license cost. So being able to analyze your data and see that users are using the right combination of license and access to the system, that is important as well. From a solution overview standpoint, this is supporting Dynamics 365. So it's more than just CRM. It's actually the whole platform on Dynamics 365 customer engagement. So sales, marketing, customer service, field service, project service, automation, that can be covered with users monitoring. From a data capture standpoint, we capture quite a lot of data. And we try to store that in the most optimal way. So a part of the solution is also Microsoft Azure. This is where we store the data and make the data available to you as a company. And then as an option, you can put Microsoft Power BI on top of the data to be able to analyze your data and report on your data. So that's kind of the solution overview. From a setup standpoint, this is really straightforward. I've included a couple of setup screens here. The top right corner, that's our users monitoring tool. And it works like an app in your Dynamics 365 environment, like any other app. So when you select that app, you'll get into the configuration, which is the bottom part of the screen. And on the configuration, this is where you'll set up the entities that you want to monitor in terms of usage. And you can even set that up at a field level if that's required. So you can, by entity, select what events you want to track, and you can track create, delete, retrieve multiple, which is search, and update events. And as you can see on the right side, on this particular entity for contacts, I've activated some fields as well, so I can actually track data at a field level if I want to. But as I mentioned, setting up is very straightforward. You set it up by entity, and you set up what events that you want to track. The field setup is, as I mentioned here on the slide, optional. It's not required. From a reporting standpoint, being able to analyze the data is actually one of the benefits of the users monitoring service. I mentioned that Power BI can be used as the reporting tool, and I'll be switching to Power BI in just a moment here. But on the screen, you can see a snapshot of a Power BI report. The data that we'll be looking at is actual real customer data, but the usernames has been changed, so we're not exposing any confidential information here. But the report can really be used to see which users are active and what they're active with. You can also see if users are using the system as expected. So are they connecting to the right entities? And by entity, I mean account, contact, lead, opportunity, and so forth. You can also, if you look at the bottom, get a user's timeline and see users over time. And you might see that, some users are more active than others and, could potentially be overworked. And other users be underworked. So maybe there's a chance here to split and even out the load on users by using this tool to analyze how your data load is across the system. And then, of course, if you see that users are not using, let's say, opportunities, then there's probably a good reason. One of the reasons could be poor introduction to how to use opportunities, or maybe the opportunity or workflow is not supporting the business. So this is where you would, at a user level, be able to increase user adoption by maybe changing your business process so it fits how the system is set up, or vice versa, or maybe give that user additional training so the user can actually use opportunities if that's the case. And then finally, does your user have the right permissions? Again, back to GDPR. If we have an entity that we know that contains sensitive information, then we want to be able to watch that and make sure that the right users have the right level of access. The report can be organized by company, by territory, or by geo. So really support the way that the data and your system is set up in your company. I'm going to switch quickly here to the live report. So this is the report that we prepared and can deliver as a standard report on top of the users monitoring data. And if we look at the report, we'll see some usernames here in the top left corner, and then the different events by user. We also have entities and event by entity. And then we have the timeline in the bottom here, and a general list of users, and then some filters over here, and some total or summarized data. And right off the bat here, we see some interesting information because we can see that the user count, the total user count is 289, which means that there's been 289 users created in Dynamics 365 customer engagement. But only 62 is active. And of those 62, they have done read-only activities or events. So by looking at this data, we can initially see that about 46 of the 62 users are doing other activities than read-only. And with the licensing from Microsoft, there's a potential here to look at your licensing because the 16 read-only users could potentially be team members and not have the necessary full user license. Now, if we dig a little bit deeper in here, we'll get to the filters here in just a moment. I do want to emphasize the bottom filter here because this is tied to the user licensing that I just mentioned here. Because here I can see how many custom entities I have just by selecting custom entity true. And in this case, you can see it's sorted by the number of entities, and Joseph, he's actually the one that have most custom entities. And we can see that it doesn't exceed 15, which is the limit for a team member. So again, there's a potential here for using team members on some of the users. I'm going to remove that filter again, and then use the custom entity false, which means that now I'm only looking at standard entities. And you can see on the chart here in the middle that this view is now filtered on all the standard entities in Dynamics 365. And initially, we can see here that opportunities is one of the entities that are used heavily. So I can actually click on that entity, and now the other screens are rendering accordingly. And we can see now that Ronald Hall, he's the one that are using opportunities most heavily. And he is searching, so he's retrieving, so he's reading, and he's also updating opportunities. Now I could sort this list differently. I could sort it by entity type here and then see who's the person that are doing the most updates and so forth. Or if I click again here to kind of release that filter, I could also go to Noah Hamilton over here and see exactly what entities that he is touching in terms of standard Dynamics 365 entities. And we can see that Noah is updating opportunities, opportunity products, and accounts. Most of the activities are read activities, but there are a few create, delete, and update activities as well. I could also look at events by date here, and let's say on this March 3rd, we can see that there's quite a few events. So this is one of the big days in the company. And when I select that, we can see that Ronald, again, he's one of our, seems to be one of our top performers, maybe not as a salesperson, but at least at updating, deleting, creating, and so forth activities in CRM. And then I can focus in on Ronald, or maybe I want to see Ronald and and Donna. So I can do a multi-select. Now I'm selecting multiple records as filters. So I'm filtering on a date. I'm also filtering on certain users. And now I can see that the entities that those two users are actually accessing with Dynamics here. From a GDPR standpoint, if we look at the scenario here, I'm just going to reset all my filters. And pick on this particular entity here. So let's take the lead entity. Let's say that the lead entity in Dynamics contains some sensitive information. So when I select the lead entity, I can see that the only one that I access in the lead entity is Joseph. And if that's okay, I don't need to do anything. But if Joseph is not allowed to look at leads, I would have to go in and change the security profile so that Joseph can't access the lead entity in the system. Going back a little bit to the issue with licensing, trying to figure out the combination, the right combination of full user licenses and team member licenses. This tool here can help you. So initially, I said that there's 62 active users and 16 read-only, which makes the initial full user count 46, and then potentially 16 team member users. But the licensing is not that straightforward, because there might be some of the users up here that potentially could be team member users. So I'm going to apply a couple of filters. I'm going to say that now I'm only looking at create, retrieve, create, delete, not retrieve, and update. And then I will be looking at standard entities only, because in this particular scenario, custom entities are not relevant. And I'll be expanding the custom entities from a filter standpoint, and I'm going to remove contacts from my filtering, because a team member can read, update, delete, and so forth on contacts, and there's a few other entities as well. Now, my filtering here is not really doing what it should be doing. Now I think I got the right filter, right? So I didn't include retrieving, so read events, and I didn't include contacts. And now, instead of the 46 that we talked about just before being full users, I'm now down to 41, right? So with this filtering, I have a representation of the users that should be full users. And with the 62 minus 41, we now have a few more team members that we could potentially assign a team member license and then save on the licensing cost. I have all the users here that match the criteria that I've set up here, so I could easily just pick this list here and export the data. I'll get an Excel worksheet that then I can use that to go back and update my user license to assign team members to the right users, and obviously full users for the users that are supposed to be full users. So a lot of capabilities and options with the report on Power BI that is giving some insights to your users monitoring data. And we have an input here from Henrik Appelgaard from Viking Life Savings Equipment. They ran this users monitoring tool for about 8 weeks to get a good representation of how the users were using Dynamics 365. Initially, they had 275 Dynamic 365 professional licenses, so a full user license. And over the 8 weeks time, only 165 users were using the system in that period. And of that 165, 75 was actually full users and 90 was team members. So they actually, by running this users monitoring for 8 weeks, they were able to save about 25% on their licensing from Microsoft. But that's not the only one. Obviously, making sure that you are getting the right out of your investment is important to Viking as well. So being able to monitor and see the users are using the system as intended, and if users are not using it, and then arrange training and potential change management if you see that the system is not being used as it's supposed to. So good feedback from Viking, a good experience, and we have a handful of other customers using the tool that we're getting same sort of feedback. So it's really a value add into your Dynamics 365 solution. That was what I had in terms of demo and content. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Jan. So I can see we do have 2 questions so far. So the first one is actually, do you have to be an Alpha People partner to benefit from the usage monitoring solution?
If I understand the question correct, do you mean partner or customer? No, you don't have to be an Alpha People customer. We can engage with you and we can install this tool, but you could be a customer of another partner. That's perfectly all right.
Amazing.
Hopefully I answered the question.
Yes. As long as they're using Dynamics, that's correct.
Dynamics 365, yeah, and we support both on-prem and cloud. So if you're still on an on-prem Dynamics 365 CRM, we can implement users monitoring on that as well.
Amazing, thank you. And then this second question we have is, can you choose what entities you would like to track?
Yes, it's completely configurable. So you can entity by entity decide what you want to track, and even down to the field level. You just want to consider how you're setting up the system to get the right benefit of the reporting. If your reporting target is licensing or license review, then you'll have to have at least all the standard entities in Dynamics set up. You don't have to do it at a field level, and you'll have to track all events, both create, delete, update, and retrieve, in order to give you the right picture in terms of license mix.
Well, thank you. That is all of the questions that we have in the chat and the Q&A so far. But we will follow up with everybody with this on-demand recording. And if there are any further questions, we will be in contact, so able to answer those on a more personal one-on-one basis for your organization.
And with that, thank you, and thank you for your attention. We'll look forward to hearing back from you, and have a nice day.